Happy New Year, everyone! And fresh out of making my top 10 WWE matches from 2023, it's time to go through the best matches of last year from All Elite Wrestling. AEW has had a very chaotic 2023, that in some or even most avenues, wasn't really good for them. But when it comes to a pure in-ring perspective, the company still kept delivering some amazing matches at least twice a month. Which means I had a lot of honorable mentions that I wanted to shout out. So here they are from most early to most recent. The Elite vs. Death Triangle's finale to their best of 7 on Dynamite, Mark Briscoe vs. Jay Lethal in one of the most emotional matches of the year, Bryan Danielson vs. Roosh, Hangman vs. Moxley in a Texas deathmatch, Moxley vs. Omega in a steel cage, the Fatal 4-Way at Forbidden Door along with Danielson vs. Okada in the main event, Punk vs. Joe and MJF vs. Adam Cole at All In, Konosuke Takeshita vs. Kenny Omega and Orange Cassidy vs. Jon Moxley at All Out, Claudio vs. Eddie on Grand Slam, Christian vs. Bryan on Collision, Statlander vs. Julia vs. Sky at Full Gear, and Adam Copeland vs. Christian Cage at World's End. Oh yeah, and almost any Continental Classic match. But I'm Duke from Duke It Out, here to give you the top 10 AEW matches of 2023. Before I begin, please make sure to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel for more great wrestling content. Number 10. The Elite, Eddie Kingston and Tomohiro Ishii vs. Blackpool Combat Club, Konosuke Takeshita and Shota Umino. Forbidden Door. New Japan does great multi-man tags, and so does AEW. So combining the efforts brought this amazing spot fest that also added a ton of storytelling between the opposing teams. With Hangman flying around, the Bucks striking away, Ishii getting amazing run-ins, seeing him and Takeshita face off was a definite highlight. And a cool comparison of last year's event, with Umino and Yuta being underdog babyfaces of a multi-man tag last time, now being a part of the other side. Then the heart of the story being between Eddie and Mox. They delivered some amazing moments together in this match, with Eddie moving Moxley away from a double buck super kick as the moment of the match for me. That by the end of it is just a huge adrenaline rush. Number 9. Kenny Omega vs. El Hijo del Vikingo. Dynamite. Like a lot of fans watching Dynamite, I hadn't seen anything from Vikingo in the ring besides a 10-second clip on Twitter. And his match with Kenny is one of the most polarizing matches I've ever watched from a weekly wrestling show. Kenny sells his ass off, which makes any later moves he delivered more brutal. And Vikingo did everything he could with his first AEW singles match, with some of the most amazing aerials you could ever see. And the consistency with how impressive they all were left me jaw-dropped. People could complain of its lack of story, but at that moment, all everyone wanted was to see something amazing, and they gave us beyond that. Number 8. MJF vs. Kenny Omega. Collision. Kenny really gave us some classics on television in 2023, and the last of the classics was this amazing world title match against MJF. And while quickly built, had the story that if MJF won, he breaks Kenny Omega's record as longest reigning AEW World Champion. And Kenny's amazing ring psychology brought out a different side of MJF in the best of ways, with Max using quite a few different moves and brought a much quicker rate to his moveset than usual. And the near falls were nail-biting by the end, with Kenny giving extra force, and the further it went on, MJF kept getting more resilient. A battle between two men who carried certain eras in AEW, and it's on the list for my favorite TV matches of all time. Number 7. Bryan Danielson vs. Ricky Starks. All Out. A match that had to be set up a little bit quicker than usual, since it seemed that Punk was supposed to be facing Starks here. But out of it, we got this amazing strap match between Bryan and Ricky. The further it went on brought the signs that we were witnessing something special. Ricky Starks giving the performance of his career, bringing out great brutality, amazing storytelling, and further showing that he deserves beyond the spot he's currently in. And when Bryan decides to get violent, damn, it's insane. With every kick or strike from the strap always giving me a reaction, leading to one of my favorite spots of the year with them just slapping each other with the strap. When you've got a man who's praised as the greatest of all time, along with one of the best rising stars of the business, just let them go out there and let them cook. Number 6. MJF vs. Darby Allin vs. Sammy Guevara vs. Jack Perry. Double or Nothing. The 4 pillars of AEW had been a phrase for these guys for over 3 years. And while people had their complaints for the build-up, you couldn't say anything with the match itself. These 4 took all of their skills and made it nearly half an hour of pure entertainment throughout. All 4 being able to call back moves from their mentors, calling back spots from other matches between either of these guys, and constant showings of what put them in the position they were in. and how even further they can blow our minds. And while there wasn't as much belief of Perry winning, so many different times throughout, I was almost convinced Sammy or Darby could take it. And the ending with the amazing callback from MJF and Darby made me sure this was going to be a top candidate for the year. Number 5, FTR vs Bullet Club Gold, Collision. I knew all of these guys were good, but I had no idea how much their tag team chemistry would shine, especially in a nearly 1 hour long 2 out of 3 falls match. They already had one amazing match before this, so even with that added pressure, they excelled the bar. Juice Robinson was hilariously energetic yet still brutal in the ring. Jay White delivered some of his best ring work in AEW so far. Then both Dax and Cash really brought out the resilient side to their teamwork that has gotten fans behind them for so many years. The first fall was quick, the second brought some incredible spots, and the third fall was the chaos that it needed to be, to bring some extra unpredictability, and it was the kind of adrenaline you rarely get from a TV match, let alone the length. It showed both what their tag team division can deliver and what to potentially expect from more episodes of Collision in 2024. And speaking of 1 hour matches, number 4, MJF vs Bryan Danielson, Revolution. A 60-minute Iron Man match is already something to immediately give props to both wrestlers for. But this plus the extended overtime is my personal favorite Iron Man match that I've ever watched. MJF showed not only his consistent capabilities in heel performances, but the fact that he could hang with the greatest of all time, and at the very least was willing to go to more sadistic lengths. And for the entire runtime, the tension kept building, pulling a very smart strategy of MJF cheaply getting a couple of falls to make the comebacks even better for Danielson. And during the overtime, I was just stunned with how good it still was. And the ending with Bryan tapping was the exact kind of shock value it needed to solidify the match as a whole and MJF as the face of the company. Number 3, Swerve Strickland vs Hangman Page, Full Gear. The most recent match on this list, and I don't think anyone was expecting just how sane this would be, to the point where almost everyone agrees that this is the wildest death match the company has ever had. Everything I could shout out is the same from everyone. The staple guns, barbed wire being stuck to Hangman, Swerve's 450 onto broken glass. The carnage just kept getting more jaw-dropping. And while it was hard to look on many occasions, it's going to be something stuck in my head for a long time. And Swerve getting the win was an outcome I wasn't guessing, but it just made the impact of this match even stronger. And I cannot wait to see what this brings to both guys, but mainly for Swerve in 2024. Number 2, Bryan Danielson vs Zack Saber Jr., Wrestle Dream. Oh boy. I remember being so bummed out when this match had to be canceled at Forbidden Door 2022, and was this worth the wait? You're goddamn right. Like you could also say with the deathmatch, the style that they exploit here isn't for everybody. But I was ready to see two of the best technical wrestlers of all time grapple and strike the hell out of each other. And we got many moments of that, with Bryan seeming to try and break Zack's ankle and the amazing submission counters. And ZSJ did amazing work on the recently recovered broken arm from Bryan, and further made his submissions look extra devastating. It's hard to make a match like this intense, but my eyes were glued to the screen for every minute. And an awesome cliffhanger for a sequel with Bryan getting the win, yet not by submission. And number 1, Kenny Omega vs Will Osprey, Forbidden Door. Usually with matches I see live, I try not to be too biased. But can you really blame me with this one? In my opinion, a better sequel to their amazing Wrestle Kingdom match earlier in the year. And even the Don Callis interference couldn't harm the insanity and brilliance that this match overall was. Osprey switching sides to his previous match and being extra brutal to Kenny on the outside of the ring. And combined his amazing moveset with some great heel moments like grabbing the Canadian flag. And Kenny brought the great spots in as well, but the true memorability from him was in the closing half. His resiliency, passion with the selling, and the ability he has to keep everyone on their feet in wonder almost peaked here. We've seen moments like it from him, but him kicking out at one from the One-Winged Angel is the most audible I have ever been during any match I was in the arena for. And the adrenaline just kept boosting up until it was almost a guarantee that Osprey would tie up the feud. With two guys who were already praised as the best in the world, I and everyone watching knew what they were getting into, but they somehow managed to still leave us as stunned as possible. So those are my 10 favorite AEW matches of 2023. Please let me know what your favorites were in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications, and duke out your opinions below in the comments.